darkness. No, I'm kidding. Hey, what's up, lovelies? Welcome to Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Episode of unknown number. Not important. You guys, welcome to the show where we talk about, analyze, dismantle, deconstruct systems of oppression that are keeping all of us down and denying all of us the opportunity to really live our best existence as humans on the planet. And if you haven't noticed, early voting has begun. We are in an election season. Did you know that? There's no way you could have avoided that in the year 2020. And with early voting underway in large swaths of the country, we are seeing Americans turn out in droves in order to participate in what they call our civic duty of showing up to the ballot box and casting our vote. One person, one vote, allegedly, in these United States. But as again, we see people waiting hours upon hours to vote. We're seeing a lot of different ways that the vote is being suppressed. And while we are seeing lots of pictures of people, willing to sacrifice their time, perhaps even their wages, to stand in line and cast a ballot, that is not a shining example of our democracy. That is actually a perfect example of how our democracy is failing us. In the year 2020, in the 21st century, it is probably more difficult to vote now than it absolutely should be. I'm not going to say it's more difficult to vote now than ever before because I'm Black and I know that's a lie. But I do know that hopefully we should have had a lot more progress being made in the form of voter accessibility and election integrity. So we have not seen that. But folks, we only vote every 2 to 4 years, right? So what are some of the ways that we can engage the system, even better yet, engaging outside of the system in order to build and achieve some political power, in order to get the issues that are important to us, important to our families, important to future generations yet unborn. So they don't have to deal with the same shit that we've been dealing with and that our parents dealt with and that our grandparents dealt with. There's a lot of ways to do that. And coming up on this hour, we have a very special guest by the name of Angela Walker. Have you heard of Angela Walker? Well, if you haven't, you should. And I'm going to tell you who she is. While people got very excited about seeing Kamala Harris be the VP candidate on the Democratic ticket for president, there was already a Black woman on a national party ticket running as vice president, and that's Angela Walker, part of the Green Party. She's running alongside of Howie Haskins. And all the positions that you hope Kamala would be correct on, Angela, she is. And let me just throw out the disclaimer here at The Real News and here at Burn It Down. We do not formally endorse any candidate nor party for president or any other office. Howsomever, I think Angela Walker is somebody that you should at least listen to and give careful consideration of what the Green Party's views are on this election, on a lot of issues where we're seeing Biden and Trump really fall flat, if fall at all, because Lord, we know that the bar is indeed in hell. So the low expectations certainly have some room to still fall, believe it or not. That's coming up later in the show. But before we speak with Angela, we are actually going to check in with one of the friends. Let's call him an alum, shall we, of Stir Crazy, which was the show that predated Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Ricci Sergienko is from the People's City Council. And if you don't follow the People's City Council on Twitter, you totally should. You want to talk about a group of young radicals who has all the smoke for every single elected official, even the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. The People's City Council has the smoke and has it for all of them, but they are doing some really interesting things in the form of digital organizing, digital activism, and really getting through a socialist agenda as best they can in democratically controlled.
Socialist.
Are you guys socialists? Is that an insult, Richie?
Who knows? I mean, personally, I consider myself an anarchist. So, we try not to sorry for interrupting you. We try not to, we don't define ourselves by ideologies or anything. You know, we just try to do the work and let that speak for itself for what we believe in.
Well, let's talk about some of the work that you all are doing and have done. Dwayne, I have a tweet on the doc from the People's City Council. I believe it references mutual aid. No, direct action. Called for direct action. There's so many Google Docs up right now. My sincere apologies, but pop that up for me if you could. One of them, and trust me, they'll both will work. There we go. So People's City Council today, you guys tweeted this out. Call for action. We need you today to give public comment at today's City Council budget meeting. And the talking points are in the thread. You give very specific instructions for people to call into the meeting ID, and once admitted into the meeting, press 9 in order to speak. And then I know that someone from your organization or someone watching this City Council meeting was actually tweeting people's responses and the kind of questions and feedback that viewers and citizens of Los Angeles were giving to City Council. Tell me why. Well, let me ask you firstly, have you found this tactic to be effective? Have people who follow the People's City Council on social media actually responded to these direct calls for action and get engaged in the City Council meetings, for example?
Yeah, for sure. So today, October 27th, 7 days away from the election, there were over 70 people that called into the Los Angeles City Council meeting today. Though we can't take the complete credit for it, there are groups and the coalition Services Not Sweeps that did a great job of turning people out. But we had over 70 people calling in today. And prior to this, like in the summertime, we were having hundreds of people calling today. And not to mention at 10 a.m. in Los Angeles, at the same time, there is the LA Police Commission meeting and the LA Board of Supervisors meeting and LA City Council meeting, all happening at the same time at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. And they do that intentionally to dissuade people from participating in the political process. There's no way that they actually want people to engage with politics in Los Angeles if they have all of those meetings at the same time. Not to mention, Nuri Martinez, Los Angeles City Council president, limits public comment to 40 minutes. So they don't give a shit about democratic participation in Los Angeles.
So Wayne, I want to look at that other tweet from the People's City Council. It references Prop 15 and Prop 22, because I want to get into some of the issues and perhaps some of the ballot initiatives that are coming up for Californians and Los Angelinos that the People's City Council wants people to take direct action on. So y'all tweeted, not sure about Prop 15, wondering why you see so many Yes on 22 ads, torn about Prop 25. We're hosting a voting happy hour with our friends, The Future Left, on Wednesday at 7 p.m. So you can ask us your questions and leave feeling more knowledgeable. And we all know that part of the keys of political engagement for people who may vote, who may not vote, is basically political education, to get them educated about the issues. So talk to me about some of these measures that you hope to educate people who will possibly be directly affected by this. What are some of these measures that the People's City Council is working on?
For sure. I also think that, when we talk about political education and getting people engaged in the political process, you pulled up this tweet and it's great. I want people to tune into that. But the political process and political education isn't just teaching people about electoral politics, right? You got to organize your household. You got to organize your community. You got to organize your family first. And you got to put in, for white folks like me, you got to push back against systematic racism and, racism in your circles, right? You can't let your people get by with saying coded racist shit, right? So first and foremost, that's the political education that we try to start with, but then as far as this happy hour goes and what People's City Council is doing in regards to the state propositions and measures, Basically, we're an anti-capitalist group, and so we take the sides against the capitalists and the corporatists, and pretty much all of these props. And it's important to, try to keep the power with the people and not let corporations like Uber and Lyft spend fucking hundreds of millions of dollars on Prop 22 and try to buy legislation.
Yeah, and for people who may not know what Prop 22 is, basically Uber and Lyft are trying to justify why they cannot pay their drivers living wages. Do I have that right?
It basically, Uber and Lyft don't want to have gig workers qualify as employees, right? Because then they would have to offer them certain benefits that they don't have to offer them now. And they're spending a lot of money to like mislead their drivers and mislead people. Like when you open the Uber app, like you get ads on Prop 22. If you like drivers that go to drive on Uber, they open the app and they get, I saw a screenshot the other day. It was like, it was just like, I'll vote yes on 22, or the second option was just like, okay, right? And so they're just like, they're using all of this money and this tech firepower and the tech that they already have. Millions of people are accessing that app and they're getting basically free fucking promotion on that prop. And so that's why I encourage people to vote no on 22, but I also encourage people, when they fucking see a yes on 22 sign in your neighborhood, go deface that shit. Fucking tear that shit down, paint it over. There's some no on 22 graphics that you can take from our Twitter accounts and Instagram, print that out, wheat paste over it, because fuck them, basically.
Now, Richie, that is the kind of language that really attracted me to the People's City Council social media, because y'all are about that action. I mean, all about that action. And I want us to actually take a look at a video. Dwayne, it's they're in front of a gentleman called Ted's house, and you're going to tell us who Ted is. But
is it Ted or Mike? It might be Mike.
No, Ted. It starts with an F. Ted Fee. See, I got it.
Oh, Fear.
Is he on the LA City Council?
City Attorney Mike Fear.
Mike Fear. Thank you so much. I'm thinking of another.
I was like, who's Ted?
Another dick named Ted. Some other dick. But but what I find interesting, first of all, about what you guys do. I mean, you were white, and you don't make any bones about putting your privilege out there, right? And I was curious as to whether or not, in some of the actions that you do when you show up at elected officials' houses, or, engage with the police, like, do y'all intentionally send the white bodies out there to kind of do the dangerous shit, knowing that the police are more likely to be brutal towards Black and brown bodies, or more punitive actions will be levied against Black and brown people? So you, the white person, show up and put your body on the line because you have the privilege to do so.
For sure. I also want to note that the People's City Council is a non-white led group, and it's also a group led by non-men as well. I just happen to be a white man that belongs to the organization. There are plenty of white allies that I fuck with, and we get down like that, but I don't want to classify People's City Council as being the same as me in regards to how we approach actions. We all have different roles, is what I'm trying to say. We all have different roles of People's City Council when it comes to, these direct actions. But in regards to your question about what, we're there to express our First Amendment rights in a non-violent way. And so we're not there to do any dangerous stuff. But, when it comes time to talking to the police, it's certainly the white folks that will take on that responsibility, because we Black and brown folks simply do not have great experiences with the cops, and they shouldn't be subjected to dealing with them. And also, like, you know, in actions when we had a giant action, or BLM had a giant action in the summer at Mayor Garcetti's house, and the white folks that were at the action actually blocked the street from the cops when they tried to kettle us, because, you know, that's a certain way to use your privilege. As far as me as my personal privilege, like anytime I see a fucking cop, like I talk shit to them and I say fuck you, and you know, I do everything I can to antagonize the police when I'm not around black and brown people, when I'm by myself. And I think that's how white people should use their privilege. Don't put black and brown bodies at risk. If you are really about that action and you want to use your privilege, then you should talk shit to the cops when you're on your own online. You should try to catch the sheriff in a private Zoom and fucking hold up a sign that says "fuck Villanueva" and show me your tats, you fucking punk.
I appreciate.
I don't know if you saw
so
that. Did you see that?
First of all, so who he's talking about, Villanueva, is the Los Angeles County sheriff, like the head sheriff, right? He's the chief sheriff, whatever the fuck.
Chief sheriff, yes.
And I saw you guys tweeting back and forth at one another. And I said, it's a good thing Richie is white, because if he wasn't, they'd be at his door right now. Talk to me about this. I can't even call it a spat or a dispute, because basically what the sheriff's department is being accused of, and some reporting has borne this out to be true, is that there is a white supremacist gang, at least one, the Banditos, and their aim.
Sorry.
It's okay. To gain entry and to gain these gang tattoos to be part of the Banditos, which again, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, don't take my word for it, the LA Times has reported extensively on this. You have to kill somebody, and that gets you your ink to be part of this gang initiation. But so talk to us about the social media, I guess, confrontation that you find yourself in with Villanueva.
Well, for months we've been spamming. Okay, so I'll do a quick background on the sheriff's department. There's not just one gang in the sheriff's department. There's at least 10 known gangs in the sheriff's department. The East LA Banditos, that's the gang that the sheriff Alex Villanueva belongs to. Alex Villanueva belongs to the East LA Banditos gang. Alex Villanueva has a Banditos gang tat that he refuses to show. But there also have been extensive reporting on the gangs like the Cobden Executioners, who shot and killed Andres Guadardo, 18-year-old, shot him while he was laying on his stomach in his back. And the guy that shot him was doing it for ganging. The sheriffs then pulled the tapes off the wall, the cameras off the wall, broke into the store and stole the tapes. Sheriff Alex Villanueva is engaged in a cover-up of the murder of Andres Guadardo. This dude is being sued left and right. He's had to pay out, the county's had to pay out a $1.5 million settlement to the CEO of the county due to harassment by the city. Harassment by the sheriff. Vanessa Bryant is suing the sheriff's department for their deputies showing people pictures of Kobe Bryant's death scene. The sheriffs arrested reporter Josie Wong at a protest while she was yelling that she was a member of the press. So that's a quick background of what's going on with Sheriff Villanueva. And for months, we've been spamming his comments saying, show us your tats, because he's a gang member and we want to see his tats. And so recently, and I want to give a background on that spat. So the other night, because there's groups coalescing around getting the sheriff to resign or to get the board of supervisors to remove him, we've been putting pressure on Democratic groups around LA County to demand his resignation. And so the other night, he was doing a private meeting with the Feel the Burn Club, and a friend of mine texted me and said, hey, like, they're like actually asking our questions and the chat is live, like everyone can read it. This is a very private thing. And I was like, you need to send me the link right now, because I'm going to bird dog this dude. And so I got on and I just, I started filling up the chat with show us your tats, blah, blah, blah. And then I started getting more people in the chat to chime in and agree with me. And the moderator then started asking him questions that we were putting in the chat, such as, are you a gang member of the East LA Banditos? And that's where the clip you saw came in, where he's like, oh, at the East LA Sheriff Station, they used to call me like the goody two shoes or whatever. He lied when he said my accounts were hacked, and there was a rumor started that I was a member of the Banditos. His accounts weren't hacked. Someone changed their header and their picture to reflect his thing and put out a tweet. His accounts were hacked. He's a liar and he's trying to fabricate this story. And then he says, like, or people are spreading rumors that I'm a member of the East LA Banditos. So we cut that clip and we posted it on Twitter intentionally of 3 seconds of him saying, I'm a member of the East LA Banditos. The sheriff is a fucking liar and he's covering up murders. There's been 11 murders by the sheriff's department since George Floyd's death. I do not feel bad one bit about lying about this dude. And then we followed up in the thread with a tweet of the full 30-second clip so people could watch it for themselves. Then he replied, this fucking idiot replied to us and was like, this is so disingenuous. Play the whole clip. Sad. And he's tweeting like Trump. But he's an idiot. Bro, we're trolling you and we baited you into responding to us about how you're a gang member and how all of these other media sources are now looking into how you're a gang member and the gangs in the sheriff's department. People are saying, blah, 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 we shouldn't have misled or posted that clip. But this fucking idiot was baited into responding to us while there's a ton of media attention on him being a gang member. He's an idiot. I don't know. I don't have any better words for him other than that.
Every time you call the Los Angeles County Sheriff a fucking idiot, an angel gets the wings of heaven, because I am enjoying your rhetoric quite a bit. And again, white folks, if you are watching, follow Richie as an example. Richie is here for what you should be. And the thing is, people might listen to you, Richie, and think, oh my God, he's so radical. He's so, boisterous and this, that, and the third. This is what the radical left looks like. You want to see what the radical right looks like? They're up in Michigan trying to kidnap fucking Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Ralph Northam in Virginia. The radical left is tame compared to the radical right, but we will talk that shit. And I appreciate that about you, Richie. From the comments, hello, sweetheart, Johnny J, my baby girl out there in LA. Johnny J says, very true. Living here in LA, they do not want civic engagement, not to mention more than half are landlords and are profiting from the lack of rent protections during this pandemic. And I know, there's so many critical social issues that have to be dealt with, especially during this time, Richie. So talk to me about, what are some of the ways that direct action and mutual aid actually help to improve the living conditions of people? Because clearly we cannot look towards our elected officials, our elected leaders, your mayors, your governors, your city council. I mean, during this pandemic, they have been, I can't say rendered ineffective, because chances are they were pretty useless even before then. But it has just made it so very glaringly obvious, the ineptitude coming from elected officials by and large. So how can groups like the People's City Council help to improve people's lives? I understand it takes organizing, and sometimes that takes a long time.
Well, shout out Nina Turner, who, has this statement that I just love to say, we got to organize some more, and then we got to beat neoliberalism and neo-fascism at the same time. And, we live in Los Angeles. I think people outside of California will consider Los Angeles and California to be like some progressive liberal bubble. It's fucking bullshit, because we are led by liberal white supremacists like Eric Garcetti and City Council member Paul Koretz. you know, over the weekend, we did a 7 a.m. wake up action at a city council member's house because they are going to pass a law in Los Angeles that criminalizes homelessness. No sitting, no standing, you know, loitering within 500 feet of a homeless shelter. And if you get a warning from a city official and you don't pick up and move, you can be arrested. So they're criminalizing homelessness in Los Angeles. And so groups like the People City Council, like, we are trying to, you know, put pressure on elected officials to not be so fucking inhumane. And, you know, why are we doing this? Like, it costs less money to help people get housing and get like mental health care and the services that they need than it does to criminalize homelessness and poverty. So, you know, one way we do that is, you know, engaging people in civic participation by calling into, you know, city council meetings. We also do direct action, going to elected officials' houses. But there's also, you know, these amazing groups in Los Angeles, like K-Town for All, Street Watch, Ground Game. They do extensive outreach. Fortunately, there's a lot of community fridges. There is a food co-op called Polo's Pantry, and they do the work in Los Angeles of getting unhoused residents the things that they need: food, shelter, things like that. The city does not provide those services. And you know, it's tough to really imagine that a city like Los Angeles can't afford to take care of its people, but there's 40,000 plus people living on the streets in Los Angeles, and the city does not do the outreach or provide them the services that grassroots volunteers do. That's who does the work in Los Angeles. It's fucking bullshit. There's a group called Ground Game LA. They have a mutual aid network that's raised hella money. And they, throughout this pandemic, they've been helping people get groceries, get meds, get, you know, rides, fill out, you know, forms online like unemployment and insurance and things like that. And it's just like really wild to see that a rich city like Los Angeles cannot handle any of this. And it really is grassroots organizers. A lot of people are volunteers that do this work. And I think elected officials in Los Angeles should be fucking, one, if you think you're a good person, you're wrong. You should be ashamed of yourself. There's very few of you that actually are good people. The rest of you are pieces of shit. And, you know, people may comment on my language, Kim, and they may comment on some of our direct actions showing up to people's houses. But 4 unhoused people in Los Angeles die a day, right? Over 620 people have died at the hands of the police in the last 7 years in Los Angeles. My actions have not done that. So people can be upset with what I do or any groups I'm affiliated do, but city council, the mayor, all these elected officials, they're the ones that cause violence in this city.
Again, I'm about it. I love it because I feel as though the time for respectability is over. All that when they go low, when we go high, please, somebody drown that in the fucking tub. That shit needs to be done as a philosophy in order to achieve power, because really that kind of thing just keeps us subservient, really. It keeps the people who are in power doing exactly things as they do. But I want us to play this video of you guys at, is he a council person? Mike, say his last name for me.
City attorney Mike Fear.
Mike Fear, it showed up at his house on his front yard. We all should be taking this kind of action. Let's take a look at that, Dwayne.
Why do you come outside now that the police are here?
Where are the police?
Are you blind?
They're right there. I didn't know they were here.
You think we're that stupid?
You're attempting to criminalize homelessness. You're attempting to criminalize homelessness in Los Angeles. You're nothing to be fucking mayor of this city. We know what you're up to, Mike Fear. We're here to fucking confront you. We're not having a fucking conversation. You're attempting to criminalize poverty in Los Angeles. It's not a fucking joke, Mike. It's not a fucking joke.
When's the last time you talked to a homeless person? When's the last time you talked to someone dying of heat on the fucking street? We do it every single day.
Does your ordinance not criminalize poverty in Los Angeles?
We don't want to hear your fucking bullshit. We want you to stop criminalizing homeless people.
Can I talk to you for a second?
No, we read your ordinance. That's why we're here.
Can I talk to you for a second?
Yes.
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 Let him talk. Let him talk for 1 second.
No more megaphones.
Yeah.
I love that because you know what? People from the political class, from the ruling class in this country are not used to people getting in their faces. They are not accustomed to being called out for the violence that their policies continually perpetrate on people every day. They do not get called out for how impotent and fucking horrible they are at their jobs. This is why I get so boosted when you guys post these kinds of videos. And I'm like, thank you. Stand on his front yard. Tell that motherfucker all about himself. How did you even come up with this idea? Not just you, Richie. Obviously, this was a coordinated effort. But why have you all found this to be an effective tactic to show up at elected officials' homes and straight up give them the business?
Well, I don't know if you recognize the voice in some of that clip, but we did not, Mike, I just want to talk about the clip for a second. The ordinance that he drew up was written in such a way that anyone reading it knows what it is, and it is criminalizing unhoused people around homeless shelters in Los Angeles. That's plain and simple. Like, it's a sit and lie law, I believe it's what they call it. Like, that's exactly what it is. So when he shows up to come talk to us, we're not having a fucking discussion. You know what I mean? Like, that law, that ordinance was drawn in such a way that there is no debate over it. There's no reasonable minds can disagree. That is fucking bullshit on his end. That is war. That is violence on his end. So we show up to his house, motherfucker. We're not there to discuss with you. We're there to tell you that you're a piece of shit. And if this passes, you're running for mayor, and good fucking luck, Mike. And I think that it's a valuable thing. And just so you know, that action came together within like 4 hours. Once we saw what the language of the ordinance was, like, people were pissed off. And there are people in Los Angeles that have been doing this work 10 times as long as I have, and I just try to fucking listen to them and their opinions on things and take the approach that they think is best. And people were pissed, and we showed up at this dude's house after some hours of planning. We did a OG car caravan action, honking with some people on feet. But then we decided to just park up and get out. He decided to come outside, which I put out there. I commend him for showing his face. But he's still a piece of shit. And the ordinance was drawn in a way that this dude is effectively, not being a great person. None of these people are being great people with the honestly how this ordinance is drawn up. And so, yeah, when we show up, dude, it's not time to talk. It's time for you to feel the pressure. And then, Kim, I don't know if you saw the video, but the fucking cops showed up. One cop showed up with a lethal round, with a fucking shotgun. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that, Richie, and that's what I mean. Like, if y'all was black, it probably would have went a little differently. You can't show up in white people's neighborhoods, stand on their front yard and berate them. Not as black people. Not if you not expecting some sort of state violence to come be rained down upon you. So again, the whole issue of you putting your white body along with your white privilege out there, like, oh, I can't. That is allyship. Okay, that's what that really looks like. I wanted us to go for a moment before I let you go, Richie, because I mean, despite what it may appear from those who may not understand what some of these actions are about, I mean, there are rules to this shit. And I want us to put up a thread authored by DMV Black Lives. Shout out to April Goggins, who is one of the main organizers out of DMV Black Lives. She also puts her body on the line as a Black woman. Way more dangerous for her to do so. But this is what she and DMV Black Lives actually tweeted out for people who want to protest and who want to engage in the streets, because you have to do it a certain way. So can we get those tweets up, Dwayne? All right. So the first one is that she says, we know, well, I'm not going to say she, they, DMV Black Lives. We know that sometimes protests are organic and sometimes we plan them, but keep in mind, there are strategies and tips to successful direct actions. Next tweet. First, form a shut it down crew. Shout out to DC. That's some DC stuff right there. Form a shut it down crew. Find the people that you can trust. Number 2, set a campaign goals. What is your intention? Who is your audience here? Define your target audience. Discover who they are. Who are you trying to affect? Who are the decision makers? What do you want them to do? How can you be satisfied? Next tweet. Number 4, consider timing and political climate. What makes this timing strategic? Why now? Is there a more strategic date? What are the political significance of this date? What makes that day special? Is it special just to you, to your organization, or to the movement? Hashtag we keep us safe. Hashtag defund MPD, Metropolitan Police, the police authority here in Washington. Next tweet. Number 5, make private and public goals of action. What are you trying to achieve by taking action at this point? Inspire others by showing them that they can make a difference. Next week. And number 6, determine resources. What resources do you have in terms of people, time, money, equipment, skills? Do you have an affinity group already organized into roles and capable of making quick consensus decisions? And next week. Creativity and theater. This is what the People's City Council does exceedingly well. What could we try that has never been tried before? What could we do differently? How could we involve artists or musicians in this action? What is the message? What is your 6-second soundbite? Next week. And can we put, hey, whoever's running the chat, can we drop this link in the chat, that brandeis.edu link, because there's 198 methods of direct action. Interesting link there. I mean, Richie, before we let you go, you know, this work is not easy. It's very dangerous. It's very time consuming. Usually does not pay very well, if pay at all. Why are you out in the streets advocating for people who have less than you, for marginalized communities? You could be probably living a very happy, comfortable white life, but instead you were out there yelling at elected officials on behalf of Black and brown bodies. What drives you to this work?
Well, one is that, like, I haven't had, like, the easiest life, but then when I take that and I think of it holistically in comparison to, like, everyone here in America, like, I've had a very privileged life, you know what I mean? And, like, I've had to grind through shit. And, you know, I failed out of college, and, like, I put myself through college and paid for it. And, you know, I moved out, you know, my parents don't like give me money or anything, but even in those circumstances, like, I'm very privileged. And it's just like, holy shit, like, why do we live in this society? And then, you know, also, like, I was radicalized by these two mentors that I had, one of which was Tom Hayden. I don't know if you watched the recent movie, The Trial of Chicago 7. Tom Hayden was one of the dudes in that movie. He was one of my mentors, and he was a radical. And I went to Compton College, and this professor that I had for a race and politics class, that I stuck with, Professor Ikwabi Bunting. He was a former member of the Black Panther Party, started the local government in Tanzania. And so, you know, that formidable experience of learning from two radicals and, you know, having these things of material conditions not being met in my personal life, I was like, so this is just what I have to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's, yeah, I view the world and it's just like, this place is fucking awful. I don't have to, and I can view it from being a white man, but like, it's just anyone looking at the state of our world and our country, there needs to be systematic radical change. If that's not like the baseline, then I really wonder like what people are really thinking about and viewing and watching if they don't believe that.
Please, if you are not already, you need to be following the People's City Council on Twitter. It is a very inspiring social media account, especially if you're trying to figure out ways in which you can actually hold elected officials' feet to the fire, especially for those of us who live in democratically controlled cities. We know that we are not dealing with the lesser of two evils. They are both fucking evil. So please follow the work. Ricci Sergienko, thank you so much. I appreciate you making the time to talk to us, Richie, about what you do.
Well, I always like talking to you. I always like talking to you, Kim. So it's like, if anytime you ask, I'm like, hell yeah. Because I know you and I are like, you know, we're thinking the same stuff.
I'm wondering, are you a fire sign? But see, this is a conversation I might have to have with you offline because so many things that you say and do, I'm like, yup, yup.
I'm an Aries. I don't know if that's a fire sign, though. I'm an Aries. Is that a fire sign?
It is. I, too, am a fire sign.
Yeah, tear it all down, baby.
Burn it all down.
Burn it all down.
Ricci Sergienko,
but then, remember, Kim, when you say burn it all down, I learned this from Dr. Melina Abdallah from Black Lives Matter LA. When we say burn it all down, we got to say, then we're going to build something beautiful after we do that, you know?
Absolutely.
Let's not just be arsonists, you know, let's be builders as well.
We can be arsonists and architects.
Yeah, that's right. I don't want people to think that being an arsonist is that bad.
As long as we're architects. And yeah, let me make that clear too, because I had somebody send me a bitchy email up here about, burn it all down. We need change. We don't need to destroy. No. We need to destroy. Don't make no mistake about it. But we also need people who have the vision and the imagination to understand that we are perfectly capable of building something better. So please don't think that burn it down, we're just going to leave it in ash. Absolutely not. There is so much untapped talent out here that is ready to step in and fill the shoes of all the evil assholes that are currently in charge of things. So no, when we burn it down, we absolutely going to build it back better, and not on some bullshit Joe Biden campaign slogan either. So
build back better. Holy shit.
My bad. Ricci Sergienko, I got to let you go though, hon. Thank you so much for making some time for us.
Appreciate you, Kim. Have a good one.
I'd like for everyone to meet Angela Walker. She is the VP candidate for Howie Hawkins' Green Party ticket for President 2020. And this is a very interesting conversation. First of all, Angela is a fascinating woman, and she has a lot to offer, a lot to talk about what the Green Party perhaps has to offer voters. And we want to begin the conversation actually talking about the ways to build political power beyond voting. There's so much emphasis, justifiably so, placed upon voting, especially during this election cycle. But we don't vote all the time, guys. We vote every 2 and 4 years. And there's a lot of opportunities and ways in order for working people to get the things that we want, that we deserve from our government and other institutions that extend beyond voting. So I like to extend right here a good Burn It Down with Kim Brown welcome to Green Party Vice Presidential candidate Angela Walker. Angela, thank you so much for making some time to speak with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for making space for me to be here. I really appreciate you.
So before we talk about the platform that you and Howie are running on, and let me just put a disclaimer out here, the Real News and Burn It Down does not endorse any political candidate for any office for that matter, but we are all here for new and fresh perspectives. So that's partially why Angela's joining us tonight. But Angela, in your background, I mean, you're so fascinating. I mean, you're a former veteran, also an activist and organizer in your own right. Talk to us about what we've been looking at here. You know, as we see long lines for people stretching around the block for in early voting efforts, and we're hearing a lot of, if you don't vote, then you can't complain. But there's a lot of other ways to engage communities, to build power around a lot of these issues and concerns that people are putting their bodies on the lines for lack of a better term. Talk to me about your experience as an activist and an organizer and the other ways that there are to be politically engaged outside of voting.
One of the biggest things that I tell people all the time is that for me, voting is a tactic. It's a tool in an arsenal, but it is absolutely not the only thing that we need to be doing. I mean, if it's something that people choose to do and there are candidates that speak to you, absolutely show up and vote. It does matter. But I think even more importantly, the work that people do in their own communities around, you know, answering the needs of the folks where they live. And I'm thinking about my experience with public transit and also with public education. We were fighting the privatization of both our transit system and our public school system. We had a state, you know, the governor stepped in and did one of those state takeovers of our public school system in Milwaukee. And just organizing around that, getting people to come out to public meetings, I think a huge part of what we have to do on the left is really, and a lot of folks are doing it, is education. Because so many people don't understand the history of the left in this country. You know, where we stand as socialists and communists, and how we fought to, you know, get the 8-hour workday, how we fought to get, you know, workplace reforms, how we fought to get housing and voting and things like that, where we were with that. So education has to be the biggest, you know, the first part of what we do. And, you know, skill shares, you know, informal meetings and, you know, if you've got maybe 4 or 5 like-minded friends, not like a giant number of people, sitting down, you know, at someone's table where it's safe, of course, and, you know, or Zoom calling, and, you know, break out the books. You know, get familiar with what we've already accomplished in this country. And then, you know, I also think about at the beginning of the pandemic when, you know, there was no hand sanitizer, no masks, you know, nothing to be had. People just lost their minds. And thinking about, you know, all of these young people in black hoodies, you know, our anarchist family, our socialist family, our folks on the left, making hand sanitizer and making sure that houseless people had it, you know, getting together and doing mutual aid. Those things for me are, you know, the most important. I think I would argue more important than voting, you know, because these touch people's everyday lives. When something, you know, you're having an issue with, you know, folks being put out of their homes, people showing up and unevicting them. Those are the things, direct action. Those are things I'm thinking about.
And these kinds of things have been out there, as you mentioned, the history of the socialist movement here in the US, the communist movement, et cetera. But it seems though a lot of people are perhaps discovering them for the first time, or the pandemic has made it such an urgent need and made it so very clear that state assistance is not going to be coming. It's not going to be coming quickly, if it comes at all. And people are stepping up and responding in their own communities in ways that a lot of people have never seen before. Talk to me about what your interpretations of how 2020 has illuminated this supply and this demand for this kind of mutual aid and direct action from community to community?
I think you just said it. Like there's a lot of portions of the population that before the pandemic were able to ignore the crisis of houselessness in this country, that were able to ignore, what's happening as far as, we're still in a pandemic. And at the same time, we're standing also at the intersection of pandemic and rebellion. Because, state-sponsored violence against Black people has not abated just because there's a pandemic. And I think that a whole lot of people who have already been hurt by the current government's or the current administration's absolutely criminal mishandling of this pandemic, they're already hurting. And now you've got all of these other things happening. You're sensitive because of what's happened to you. And now these things are coming at you. You can feel them and see them and receive them in a way that, maybe in 2016, maybe in 2012, people weren't feeling it like this. But now it's like, you can't look away. It's right here. And these are people, these are people, someone's losing, someone's being evicted. Someone is unemployed because of the pandemic. Someone, doesn't know what to do with their children because they're afraid to send them to school, in real time, but they don't have access to broadband. This is very real for people. And so I think that our message as socialists, particularly, all of us on the left who have been saying these things, we have to take care of us. I think people are in a position now to receive that in a much bigger way than they ever have been before.
Mm-hmm. And, when people who have long identified themselves as Democrats, people who stand with the labor movement, people who are in support of policies like Green New Deal and going beyond so-called criminal justice reform, but now taking the mantle and pushing that ball down the field to defund the police and abolish the police, when they look at what the Democrats have put forward for 2020 in the form of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, disappointed might be the right word to describe it, but also somewhat expected, right? So I'm going to hit you with some of the issues that are on the table right now, especially those that were brought up at the most recent presidential debate between Trump and Joe Biden. And I'll start with the issue of healthcare, because we know that the Affordable Care Act is attempting to be dismantled by the Trump administration without a replacement named or even described for that health plan. And Joe Biden, on the other hand, in the face of this pandemic, in the face of, 25 or so million Americans now unemployed, many people lost their employer provided healthcare plan, Joe Biden does not support a Medicare for all option, universal healthcare for all. What is the position of the Hawkins-Walker ticket on healthcare?
We absolutely, not only do we support Medicare for all, we authored it. And the Democratic Party, of course, as they do, swiped it, gutted it, diluted it, and then took it off the table completely. So, I think it's something that, I've run into where people are like, you're just copying the Democrats with Medicare for all. I'm like, yo, back your bus up, baby. We wrote that. That did not come from them. It came from us. And how out of touch is it to have a pandemic that is causing the harm that it is causing, particularly in Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, and to say Medicare for all is off the table when what was the polling most recently? 84% of Americans, across party barriers and socioeconomic classes support Medicare for all. I mean, come on, it's just not. It's not. That wasn't intelligent. I'm sorry.
Back your bus up, baby. Hold on, let me write that one down. Okay, Angela, the issue of criminal justice reform and defund the police and abolish the police. Joe Biden, well, first of all, we know where Donald Trump stands on this issue. He's made it perfectly clear. The police have made it perfectly clear that they stand in lockstep with Donald Trump. Joe Biden, however, has admonished Black Lives Matter in some circumstances. He has said that he does not support defunding the police, absolutely does not support abolishing the police. In fact, in his plan, the Biden-Harris 2020 plan, he advocates giving $300 million more dollars to police and says that police need better training. What is your ticket's position on the issue of police brutality and police violence against Black and brown communities?
We have to be completely honest. This violence is rooted in this system. And the system in this country is rooted in the genocide of indigenous people, the enslavement and exploitation of the labor of African people. We need to be clear about that. This is where it came from. And going forward, you know, the violence that we're seeing now, you have a lot of people who are serving on police forces who are racist, misogynist, transphobic and homophobic, and sadists. I can speak to Milwaukee Police Department. I am from Milwaukee. They've been killing people. I remember back to 1980 with the murder of Ernest Lacy, suffocated to death by the MPD. This isn't something that just happened, you know, all of a sudden appeared on the scene with Trayvon Martin. This is a systemic issue. And so when we're talking about defund the police, first off, just to, you know, for a ticket like Biden-Harris to claim or purport that they align themselves with the people, and then to, like, you know, absolutely don't hear what they're asking for in the street. The call for defund the police in a lot of quarters around the country is pretty deafening. And so with our administration, where we stand with defunding the police is defunding the police. I mean, 5% of what police actually do is addressing violent crime. And they're not doing that very well either. I'm thinking of the backlog of rape kits in so many police administrations around the country. But 5% of what they do is actually violent crime. So we need to be downsizing police forces, which eat up the lion's share of most municipal budgets. I know Milwaukee, definitely that is the case. Downsize police budgets, you know, root out people who are racist, who are sadist, who are transphobic, homophobic, misogynist, and otherwise violent, and make sure that the people that you are keeping on the force are people who actually want to serve their community. Take the money that you have taken from the police forces, which is also, you know, what the movement for Black Lives has called for, and reinvest that money in wraparound services for communities. So you don't have an armed police officer who is absolutely not trained in substance use issues or in mental health issues showing up where people are acting out because of those issues with a gun. And I'm thinking of Tony Robinson in Madison, Wisconsin, a young man who was murdered in his hallway by the police, who was having, you know, a substance use issue. You know, he was just a kid. And so we need to have counselors. We need to have social workers. We need to have people who are trained in, you know, dealing with these other issues, funded to show up, you know, in our communities and help people, and not be sending armed police officers. We need to be reserving cops for things that cops should be doing, which is addressing violent crime.
So, Angela, I have a question here from our Real News climate reporter, Steve Horn. Steve wants to know, Ms. Walker, so you and Howie Hawkins are running on an eco-socialist Green New Deal. How does that differ from the progressive Democrats' vision of a Green New Deal? And why do you think public ownership is a key part of what's lacking in what AOC and Ed Markey are pushing for?
We advocate for community control, people's direct control. It gives people accountability. You know, we're big fans, obviously, we're socialists, of cooperatives, you know, putting the resources in people's hands. And, you know, they have direct control over how these things are administered. And that, I would argue is the biggest difference between the eco-socialist Green New Deal and what the Democrats were calling a Green New Deal. I mean, one of the things that they were absolutely adamant, both, Biden and Harris, we are not going to stop fracking. That's problematic. If you are interested in truly interested in reversing climate change, you're going to have to ban fracking. We're not going to support new fossil fuel infrastructure under a Hawkins-Walker administration. We are going to ban fracking under a Hawkins-Walker administration. And also retrofitting buildings for clean energy. We are not kicking the can down the road until I think Biden has amended himself, excuse me before I misspeak. I think he amended it to 2025. That'll be interesting. Our plan is to move to 100% clean energy by 2030. And, zero waste manufacturing, retrofitting buildings, as I mentioned, organic agriculture is something we want to move to. The restoration of forests, soils, and wetlands is absolutely crucial to that. And putting people to work, which is part of the economic Bill of Rights that's attached to the Green New Deal, doing work, rebuilding our infrastructure. So, I mean, this is all completely doable, and we see these things being done in other countries. There's no reason we can't do this here. The Democrats have no political will to do it for the simple fact that that would involve them removing themselves from receiving money from fossil fuel industries, oil and gas industries, things like that. They're not gonna cut off the hand that feeds them.
And lastly, Angela, looking back to 2016 and the defeat of Hillary Clinton, the rise of Donald Trump, the Green Party and the 2016 Green Party presidential nominee, Dr. Jill Stein, received a good chunk of some blame game finger pointing after the fact, especially coming from establishment Democrats, pointing to the fact that Dr. Stein was able to get thousands of votes in some crucial swing states that Hillary Clinton ended up losing. And for some reason, your party took a lot of the blame in part for Hillary Clinton's defeat. What do you have to say to those people who are, for one, still got Jill Stein's name in their mouth in 2020? And as we look ahead to Election Day, we're so close to it now. Do you think that your ticket will actually factor in some of these more tightly decided states, in your opinion?
As far as the election goes, I think anything is possible. So many people have been very vocal around the country about supporting and being enthusiastic about a Green New Deal, and also about Medicare for all, and being that we're the only party championing those things. It could be, we could pull quite a chunk of voters in swing states, and we'll see. I think that the Democrats also know that, which is why they pushed us off the ballot in a couple of those swing states. One of them being my home state of Wisconsin, and I'm not gonna be a candidate forever. So we'll have that talk after this is over. But because I got something for them. But as far as us being, and we're receiving so much flack for even daring to run in this absolutely most crucial election of our lives, which is what they say for all of them. We're taking that flack now. And our thing is very simple. The people who show up and vote Green or Libertarian, because it ain't just us, Libertarian or Constitution or Marijuana Party, whomever they support, are people who are not going to give their votes to the Democrats for the Republicans. If we were not on the ballot, and even in places where we've been pushed off the ballot, people are writing us in. These are people who would otherwise not vote. And so for the, and I'm thinking mainly of the Democrats because we don't too much rock with the Republicans, but thinking of, this sense of entitlement that the Democratic Party seems to have to people's vote, that if we don't exist, they're going to show up for you. I really need them to understand our people are not going to show up for you. What will happen is what happened in 2016 with 100 million people abstaining, period. And, you know, I hope that that's not the case this year. I hope that people have found something, you know, even if it's third party, some reason to show up. But, you know, non-voters won in 2016, and the Democrats need to stop blaming Dr. Stein for that. We had nothing to do with that. They ran a candidate that did not resonate with people. And y'all lost. It is what it is. But you can't blame us for that. The people who showed up for us will only show up for us. Those votes weren't for you.
We're going to leave that right there. We have been speaking with Angela Walker. She is the vice presidential nominee for the Green Party, running alongside Howie Hawkins for president and vice president in 2020. Angela, we appreciate you making some time to speak with us. I think, again, Real News and Burn It Down do not make any political endorsements. However, I feel as though your message and your position on the issues is something that is of interest to this audience and to the Real News audience. So I do appreciate you making some time to speak with us and elaborating on some things.
I appreciate y'all making time for me to be here with you. It's an honor.
We appreciate Angela Walker joining us. And even though I am wearing the exact same shirt, I did that on purpose. That interview was recorded last night. And if you heard Angela's comments about defunding and abolishing the police, she made the direct reference about police do not need to be called when someone's having a mental health crisis. And we saw allegedly the exact same thing to what she was referring to happen in Philadelphia with the murder of Walter Wallace Jr., 27 years old. There is video of Walter's murder by police. I'm not going to show that on this program because that traumatizes me. So if you're looking for it, it's available out in the social media world. It's easy to find. It is difficult to look at. And if we could take a look at the response from Philadelphians last night taking to the streets, because the video showed Walter allegedly holding a knife, but at a relative distance of around 10 feet away from two white officers. Walter is African American, and they opened fire on him in front of his mother. It was a very, very traumatic scene, and people took to the streets justifiably pissed off. Let's take a look at those if we could, Dwayne. So this incident happened in West Philly, 61st and Locust. We will be talking about what happened with this young man's murder on Friday edition of Burn It Down. So I'd like to thank our guest today, Ricci Sergienko from the People's City Council, Green Party vice presidential candidate, Angela Walker. And I just want to thank everyone that showed up in the comments tonight. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend about Burn It Down with Kim Brown. We here bringing all the issues that you care about, but in the language that you actually speak. So we'll see you all on Friday. Again, have a great evening. See y'all later. Bye.